Demi Lovato came out with a new song called 29. I'm Cliff, and this is Chandra. We're here in the Red Room at Not Gospel Studios. We're going to look into this song and see what kind of conversation comes out of it. Who knows? We may never leave this couch. This is Not Gospel. Demi Lovato is a girl again, and...
That's not what we're talking about.
wrote a new song called 29. Would this song be any different if she was still not a girl? If she was still non-binary? Is she still non-binary? Chandra did not want to talk about that at all. I just keep throwing it in there.
The reason I wanted to talk about it, thank you for asking, was because, okay, when she was younger, she dated that, what's his name, Wilmer Valderrama?
Yes.
And he was like 26 and she was 17.
Okay.
And then they had sex. And now that she's older, she's just turned 29. That's why it's called 29. And she's looking back on that relationship like, oh my goodness, how is a grown man dating a 17-year-old? Could I be interested in a 17-year-old now and take their virginity? Was that appropriate? Like, she's starting to look at life differently.
So here we are, the lyrics for 29. We got this off of Genius.com, and it's from Snippet and the official Discord listening party. So apparently it's difficult to find these lyrics. You kind of have to jump some hoops. Maybe it's because the song just recently came out.
I don't even know if the song came out.
Oh, okay, so verse 1, pedal on the vine, too young to drink wine, just 5 years of bleeders, student and a teacher. Far.
Hold on a second. 5 years of bleeders, I'm assuming, period.
I guess so. Just 5 years of periods, or bleeders, student and a teacher. Far from innocent, what the F's consent? Question mark. Numbers told you not to, but that didn't stop you.
Is that all the lyrics?
That's verse 1.
Oh, that was just one verse.
Yeah.
What's the chorus? Is there a chorus?
The chorus says, finally 29, funny just like you were at the time. Thought it was a teenage dream, just a fantasy. But was it yours or was it mine? 17, 29. 1729.
Okay. Okay, so when... that's a good question. When are you an adult? When can you make those decisions for yourself? When I was 14, I had my first kiss. My first boyfriend was 19 years old.
First off, she doesn't necessarily say here that she lost her virginity at 17 to this guy.
She definitely did.
She definitely did.
Yeah.
Okay, because she says far from innocent, what the F's consent.
Yeah.
So that is obviously alluding to the fact that she's
had done stuff.
Some sexually promiscuous activities. And I'm not saying sexual promiscuity is any worse for women than it is men. I'm just literally just saying she's been out there and done some sex acts with people.
Yeah.
Or one person, whatever. Anyways, at the end of the day, she says she's far from innocent, but what the F's consent? In my mind, like...
Well, do you remember that Milo... What was his last name? Milo?
Yiannopoulos?
Yes.
Yes.
When he talked about... He got in a lot of trouble because he said at 14 he seduced a priest. And then he was like, but, I did that. And now he's just now like... 30 years later, turn around and look at that like, oh, I was 14. Even if that's what I was going after, I was messed up in the head. I wasn't thinking straight. I was a child.
I mean, there's some truth to that. There's some truth to that. It's difficult for me to use that as an excuse for poor behavior.
Yeah.
Like I can't see a 17-year-old who busts a car window, steals the car, hijacks it, and runs over somebody and drinks and drives and kills someone. I'm like, yeah, you charge them for manslaughter like an adult.
That's a hard one.
There's a difference also developmentally between a 13, 14-year-old and a 17-year-old.
Yeah. And like thinking about when you were a teenager, like there were things, like I had a crush on a teacher in high school. I would have loved if they'd kissed me. But now looking back on it, that would have been insane.
I do think it is the responsibility legally of the adult to act like the adult in that situation and be like, no, this is going to get me in trouble.
Yeah.
This is not right. And you are technically a child, a minor. Regardless, I think that needs to be put out there and voiced out there. But I also think adults, and you may be like, oh, you're wrong for this, but I believe in audio taping when a 16, 17-year-old person is saying all this stuff all the time. I believe in protecting yourself by audio taping this and being like, look, this is what they're doing to me. Please get them away from me. This will get me in jail. Like, leave me alone.
Like if you were a teacher that had a kid in on you.
Who was trying to seduce me like that, I would be like, yo, listen to what they're doing to me. Please get them out of my class or get them out of my life away from me. Because I don't want to, because I don't even want the allegation at that point, because who's going to be in trouble? If the child or the minor is, I don't want to say crazy, but silly enough, or however you want to put it, immature enough to be seducing somebody else like that and saying all these kinds of, and acting that wild, who knows what they'll do? They could come to school saying you did something to them, and you didn't.
Okay. Historically, men have dated young women.
Yes.
And like Elvis
and some
got
cultures,
Priscilla at 13 and moved
some
her
cultures,
up here.
13, married off at 13, 14 years old,
We don't do that as much now.
No.
Do you think, like, it's hard because women's bodies do mature and they get ready for baby making at a young age. At what age is it okay to start being, can they get married? Like, should they be able to date 10 years older boys? Like, it's a tough one.
I don't think so. I don't think it's hard at all.
You don't think so?
No, I don't think, if they're too young to drink, they're too young to smoke, they're too young to get in a serious consensual relationship.
With an adult.
With an adult.
Yeah.
That's right. In my opinion, they're too young to get in a serious consensual relationship with a minor either. They're too young. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're too young. They should go to the movie and hold hands and watch a movie with the family. Sure, whatever, you know what I'm saying? But to get in a serious consensual, like, sexual, intimate relationship, they're too young, in my opinion. Period. You want to drop the age of voting and adulthood and all this stuff to 16 or something like that, and you want to do that universally, and that's the law. You decide, okay, you decided that. Do I necessarily agree with that? No.
Yeah.
But you decided that. As long as those laws are there, as long as you can't even buy a pack of cigarettes or alcohol or vote or whatever until these ages, no. You shouldn't be allowed to engage in consensual sex with somebody.
So do you kind of have the view of it like she seems to have in the song is he should have known better than to mess with someone as young as me?
Yes. But I also feel like had I been in his position, we wouldn't have done it. Duh.
Well, I mean, they were in a long-term relationship for years. So it's not like he was using, like, he was just like, oh, I'm just going to take her virginity and skedaddle. Like, he was in a relationship with her. He was in love with her. But
how long did they date? Like, after she became an adult?
Yeah, they dated for several years.
Now,
like
see,
5,
that's okay. So that's the issue I have with that. It's like, now it seems if she starts saying, oh, what did I even know what I was doing? When you stayed in a relationship with a person for 5 years, now it just seems like you're having a regret about a relationship that went south. That's what it feels like to me.
When she was young.
When she started when she was, it's different if it started when she was 14 years old. If it started out that young, totally different story than months from being 18 and you get in a relationship with somebody.
Yeah.
And then you're 18, and then you're 19, and you're 20, and you're 21, and you're 22, and you're still with this same person.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, now it just sounds like emotional regret, like relationship regret.
Even though there was that huge age gap.
Even though there was the age gap, because he was 26 and she was 17, right?
Yeah.
9 years apart. She's 29. Would she date a 39-year-old?
Well, that's different.
A 38-year-old?
They're both adults.
Right. But they were both adults for the majority of the relationship.
Yeah. But he did get her kind of young.
There's no arguing that. He did get her kind of young. He did get her, in my opinion, as a minor. He did what was wrong. He shouldn't have. Should have waited till she was 18. But the problem I have there is this. If she's going to be able to say, well, if he'd waited a few months, maybe she wouldn't be able to say this song and have any credibility whatsoever.
Okay.
Come on at that point. You know what I mean?
What if he had married her at 17?
If he married her at 17?
Yeah, is that still wrong or is that still okay because of the good intentions?
I think you have to have parental consent at 17.
I think in most states, yeah.
Legally, there's nothing wrong at that point. The thing that's difficult for me to kind of get on her side of the story of the possibility that he was just totally taking advantage of her or whatever, is that if he'd have waited a few months, I'm not sure when they started dating in her 17th year of life, but if he waited a matter of months, then they started dating, she'd have no case. She couldn't say anything about it. Like, well, I dated him and he was 26 and I was 18, or he was 27 and I was 18. And everybody's like, well, you're an adult, consenting adult, get over it. would she still have a case? Would she still be able to say he did wrong? And everybody would say, well, no, you're 18. He didn't do any wrong. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, at 17 years old, yes, what he did was wrong in my opinion, absolutely. But now going back and being like, I didn't even know what I was doing and I made all these mistakes. Yeah. It's like you continued to do that for the next 5 years. Mm. You never woke up and realized you didn't know what you're doing until it took you 5 years.
I'm not saying she wasn't a groomed relationship. I definitely think that they were in love with each other. But if she wasn't a groomed relationship, it's hard to get out of those.
Right, but here's my thought, is what I'm saying is, it seems very likely to me that if he'd have just waited till she was 18, she would have been stuck in a 5-year relationship and had the same regret, like getting out of it. Mm. And I'm like, you're not going to develop in those next 3-5 months or whatever it is to a point where, oh, now I know what I'm doing. No, you just legally know.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. If it was going to take you 5 years to figure that out when you were 17 and a half or whatever, it was going to take you 5 years to figure that out when you were 18.
Have you heard that song Taylor Swift wrote about John Mayer, where apparently he took her virginity also, and she was like, wasn't I too young for you?
No.
They had a whole like song battle. She wrote Dear John, and he wrote Paper Dolls, and then she wrote another one. It was like this whole little song battle back and forth.
Was she an adult?
I think she was older than Demi. She might have been 18 or 19. But still, it was a much older man. He was probably 12, 13 years older than her. When you're in your 20s, you're not an adult still. Like your brain isn't even developed till you're 25 generally. But
your prefrontal lobe or whatever it is develops to your 25.
But you're not in your teens either. And I think 20-year-olds shouldn't be messing with teens. And if you're 32, like I think John Mayer might have been, you definitely don't need to be messing with teens.
I don't know. I don't.
Even if it's legal.
To me, there's not that much difference between an 18-year-old and a 20-year-old.
Yeah.
There's just not that much difference.
Not much.
So if you're 20, 22, and you're dating an 18-year-old, I'm like, whatever. That's a senior in college and a freshman in college. Mm-hmm. I'm like, hey, whatever. In fact, the entire world pushes them into that social medium where people at 18 are going to be overly exposed to people at 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, if they're, going on to graduate school or whatever. Yeah. It's like that the world is conditioning for those relationships to happen.
Mm-hmm. We've been talking about younger girls and older men.
Yes.
Does it change for you if it's an older woman and a younger guy? Like, is a 17-year-old guy and a 26-year-old woman?
No, it doesn't change because to me, we're just talking about laws. Mm-hmm. You're talking about laws that are designed to protect young people.
Yeah, I'm not talking about legality. I'm just talking about morally. What do you think? Seriously, a 17-year-old student gets molested by a teacher. If it's a boy and a female teacher, it's still awful, but I'm not as upset about it as if it's a man teacher with a young girl.
See, I'm 100% just as upset about it.
I do think it's wrong on both ends, but I don't think it screws up the boy as much as it screws up the girl.
I'm 100% as upset about it. Totally. The reason that it's wrong for the man, this is what you said. Mm-hmm. He should know better.
Yeah.
Are you saying that the woman shouldn't know better?
Yep.
Is she dumb? No. Women aren't dumber than men.
I'm not nodding that they're dumber. Yeah, I'm just nodding.
She should know better. That's the problem. So I'm just as ticked off if it's a woman, older woman with a younger man, because she should know better. It's her responsibility.
Yeah.
Period. I think it's just as despicable when a woman takes advantage of a young man like that.
You think it's just as predatory?
Yeah, absolutely. You can't say females are girls at 17 and women at 18. And males are men at 17 and men at 18.
I'm not even as much looking at it as like, 18's legal.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think 29 and 18 go together either.
Not for a successful relationship typically, because you're still, when there's that kind of age gap, you're still figuring out who you are. At 18, you're still figuring out who you are. And at 29, hopefully you've already figured out pretty much who you are. Mm-hmm. If you expect me to believe that girls don't know any better, they don't know what they're doing at that age, but guys do, that 17-year-old guys do, then that's assuming that guys are just somehow developmentally further along than women, which they're not.
The fact that they go out and seek it more often, I do think, it's less harmful for their psyche. Not that it's good and that they should be dating older women, but I do think it's not something should be punished criminally as hard from the older standpoint.
I disagree. See, now we're talking about legality. There's no way that women predators that would do that should be punished less hard.
I mean, just in this scenario that I'm going to give you.
All right, I'm ready.
A 17-year-old high school student.
Okay.
A 22-year-old teacher's assistant or brand new teacher.
Okay.
It's a young girl and a 20-something-year-old guy.
Yes.
He knows better.
And if you flip-flop it, she knows better.
Yes, but the 17-year-old boy would be very happy. Whereas the girl...
Doesn't matter because here's why. The girl, I could say, well, the girl will be very happy too. Mm-hmm. Who do you say she's not?
In some cases, they might be, but
well,
in the majority...
We're not talking about like rape.
I know.
We're talking about, because she even says, what the heck is consent?
Yeah.
So in other words, she's saying like, yes, at the time I thought I was consenting, but who knows? I was 17. Maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't know what consent was. If a woman doesn't know what consent is at 17, neither does a man. Mm-hmm. You can't, I mean, come on. That's not fair at all.
It is, because men and women are different.
You're saying that young men, boys, know more in the moment what they want than women, than young women, than girls?
I'd say sexually at 17, 18, 19, they're more predatory than the average female is at that age. They know what they're going after.
I would say that they both know what they're going after. They just both don't know the end results. I've actually spoken with men on this, close friends of mine who at young ages in high school were seduced by older women, and now they say, I didn't realize then what that did to me, but that set me on a course that this is what I expect. This is what should happen.
Yeah.
So even if they know what they want in the moment, that they're just running around following that second brain, if you know what I'm talking about, it doesn't mean that they are going to know what that feels like and what those consequences are 5 years down the road. And the thing is, it makes them no different than Demi Lovato. All she's doing is 5 years down the road having regret about choices she made in the moment that she was technically too young to make.
After everything you've said, it seems like you're still being critical of Demi Lovato.
I am critical of a lot of these cases where they go through 5 years, 10 years down the road, and then they say, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. The same thing was with the Me Too movement a lot of times. People adults who would say, well, maybe it wasn't consent. Does the guy get the same privilege? Can a guy turn right around and say, well, maybe it wasn't consent. Maybe I didn't want to bang that girl.
Well, for men, it's a little different.
Amber Heard, Johnny Depp. That brought to light the reality that women...
Some men are abused too.
And some men are abused, and some accusations are a load of bullcrap. Mm-hmm. They fully are. And I think a lot of times the regret that people have from choices they willingly made is misconstrued as, maybe I didn't consent. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm like, come on. So that's why for me, the only thing that makes this different is while she was 17, she wasn't legally allowed to make those choices. But for the next 4 years that they were together, come on, man. Like, she's an adult. She's legally allowed to make the choices. That's where the word
grooming comes in, Which they're trying to get rid of that word on Reddit and stuff.
I know.
Have you read about that?
Well, I assumed they would be trying to get rid of that word.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows what it means now.
Yep.
So they're trying to make it a dead word. They're trying to make it a word that nobody uses and has no relevance. And it's like, oh, it does. And it's happening.
I want to say I don't think you understand about women and vulnerability sometimes.
Okay.
Especially young girls and older men. Especially if she thinks she has a crush on that guy or she likes that guy and stuff. They can be hugely taken advantage of in a way that I feel like most young men couldn't be.
You were intentional with saying she thinks she has a crush on that guy. Mm-hmm. Then what if I turn around and say that he thinks he wants to sleep with this girl? A 17-year-old guy say he thinks he wants to sleep with that person. And then somebody says, oh, no, he does. Clearly he does. Look, he's aroused. It's like, no. Then I would say clearly she has a crush on him. Mm-hmm. Doesn't think. She does.
But it's not the same.
Sure, one of them's physical arousal and another one is different. But just because somebody like...
One's emotional and one is more physically evident.
Sure.
Yeah.
Man, I'm tracking with all of that.
Yeah.
The issue I have here is that there's not enough difference between 17 and 18. There's enough difference for me to just strictly in the confines of the law say, yep, you did wrong, take your consequences. Sure. But developmentally, there's no science that will show there's much difference between 17 and 18.
No,
period.
If she wrote the song from the perspective of a 19-year-old that happened to, I would still be on her side saying, yeah, he probably should have known better.
And see, that's where I'm like, but then who's to say, well, a 22-year-old, right? She wrote a song at 22 saying, I'm 22 years old and I dated a 32-year-old man. And like, it just totally, I'm like, okay, at what point are you like, you can't run your society off of the subjectivity. That's why some of these hard lines got to be drawn in the sand. And so I'll agree all day long.
Well, when it comes to putting a man in jail, yes, those lines have to be there.
And I agree all day long. He shouldn't have done that at 17.
Yeah, but am I saying he should be prosecuted? That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
And she's not pushing for that either.
Yeah, I don't want it. Yeah, I don't want it to be thought at all that I'm for the adults engaging with acts of minors, like pedophilia. No, no. People at this part are going to think I'm heartless and insensitive to young girls.
Yeah,
I'm not. I'm just as sensitive to young men, and you're heartless and insensitive to young men. Oh no, don't prosecute the teachers. It's not their fault.
I did not say that.
Young men.
I didn't say any of that. But anyways.
We build our culture literally trapping 18 and 19-year-olds for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years, foreseeably, in the same buildings and the same structures and the same dormitories at times as 20, 22, 23-year-olds, 24-year-olds even, if they're going to graduate school. And to sit and say that as long as there's a 3-year age gap, that's fine. But if there's a 7-year age gap, if it's a 29-year-old with a 22-year-old, or if it's a 29-year-old with a 20-year-old, that's wrong. And I'm like,
I think when you're getting into everybody's in their 20s, it is more of a subjective thing. But teens and then late 20s, that's a whole different ballgame.
You're still talking within a decade. A 19-year-old getting with a 29-year-old
yeah,
or a 28-year-old.
but we're talking about young adult and older adult versus teenager and adult.
Do I think there's something a little odd about a 28-year-old who's into an 18-year-old? Yeah.
Okay, what about this?
That I'm a little weirded out. I mean, that's weird to me.
I can't remember what role he was in her life. If it was manager or he ran her label, I don't even remember. But Celine Dion, that the man that she was married to for 35 years or something, and he died. She was like 15 or 16 when they met. Started dating when she was 18. He wifed her up immediately. She popped out twins. Like, was that grooming? Like, did he trap her and she really is in love with him? Like, to me, those situations are tough.
It's just all subjective. That's why I think you have to just go with the legal confines and just deal with it.
Yeah.
Because Celine Dion may say they had a wonderful, fantastic life.
Yeah.
Kids, the whole deal, great. He died.
I agree. But I do think, as society, we can have opinions on things.
Oh, sure. Also, as a Western culture, our society and our view on that is going to look way different than other cultures because most of the world out there has arranged marriages still. And they
Which
marry,
I think is kind of awesome.
They marry young.
Yeah.
We're one of the only cultures that has this utter freedom in our marriage. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Now, this is same topic, but a little personal-ish, because I know somebody who at 16, their mother, who's, I'll say it to her face, she's ignorant. At 16, she signed so that this girl could marry a 26-year-old boy. And he abused her. He was an abusive person. And after she had a baby and stuff, she got out at 19. But imagine if he hadn't been abusive. And she wouldn't, like, I got to get out of this. He's going to kill me. Like, she could have been trapped in that for 20, 30, 40 years.
Yeah, but who's to say she's trapped? She's the only one.
Yeah, well, it's a mental thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like...
When an adult gets a 16-year-old, I think there's a bit of trapping there.
That's what I'm getting at, is that's where you have to go with the confines of the law.
Yeah.
That's why most laws are in place to protect us. That's just reality. They're to protect people. Most of them are. We can have our opinions on it, but our opinions are so subjective because the moment you twist it around...
Well, our opinions do form law. And if enough people got together and was like, hey...
But if you say, well, we shouldn't allow a parent to consent for a 16-year-old, if that's the law you want to push for, then I say get enough people to advocate for it and arrange your society around it.
No, the NAMBLA, they're trying to get the age of consent lowered to 14 for males. So that older men can have sex with 14-year-old boys.
Pardon me?
They're trying to get the sexual age of consent lowered down to 14.
That's awful.
I know.
That's awful.
I know.
I'm okay with this kind of law. I'm okay with laws that say parents can consent for 16, 17-year-olds with a smaller age gap. say there's an 18-year-old and it's
Yeah.
a sophomore dating a senior or whatever, or a 16-year-old with a 19-year-old. There's a 3-year gap. The parents
Yeah.
can sign. I say, hey, that's probably okay. I'm still an advocate for abstinence, so that doesn't mean I like the idea of 16-year-olds and 18-year-olds, 19-year-olds getting it on with each other. No, I think you should wait till you're married. The law is in place at 18 that once you're at 18, if an 18-year-old wants to date a 35-year-old, I don't think they can go back later and be like, I really didn't know what I was doing. But it's like, that's your tough luck. Like, hate to say it. Like, there's a lot of things I did at 18, 19, 20 years old. I can look back and be like, I was just being stupid, you know? But you accept it and move on.
She's not trying to convict him, but she is saying, you should have thought more about it.
Yeah, but that's the problem I have with this stuff, Chandra, is we're not thinking big picture. She's not trying to convict him, but she knows what she's doing in the same way that happened with Johnny Depp. Whether Johnny Depp won or lost that case, he won that case in the court of public opinion.
Yeah.
Even if they would have found him,
So you don't like her trying to win the case of public opinion?
it's borderline like deliberately
Do you
trying
think
to
she's
cast
trying to
shade.
slander him?
It sounds like trying to cast shade when literally you engaged in a relationship with someone for 5 years, a few months of which were wrong. The rest were totally fine. And you did it anyways. And I'm sitting there going like, although I can appeal for, the sense of, yeah, well, if you lost your virginity, this person is 17, yes, it's a big deal. And I said in the beginning, he should have known better. He's the adult. But 5 years into it, it just seems like you're trying to get his approval rating in the public eye down, win the court of public opinions on this person because
But what's
you
wrong
regret a
with
bad
that?
relationship.
If you like Johnny Depp being able to do that with Amber Heard,
I didn't say that I like that. I said I like the fact that he went to court to plead his case because I like the truth coming out.
but Wilmer can come out and be like, hey, look, this is what happened. He's welcome to do that also. And I'd be happy to listen to his side of the story.
He's welcome to do that, but who is he?
What do you mean?
Exactly what I said. I have no idea who this person is, but I know who
He
Demi
was
Lovato
Fez
is.
on that 70s show.
Oh, yeah. He was a handsome guy.
Yeah.
Fez. But I had no idea who he was.
He dated Lindsay Lohan, too.
He's obviously not as famous as Demi Lovato.
Back then he was, though. And he dated all the starlets. He dated
It
Lindsay
doesn't
Lohan.
matter how big he was. It's who they're listening to now. If this song came out back then when he was so popular and big, different story.
The point of the song is that she's 29 now and looking back on her life with perspective. She couldn't have wrote this song 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah, but according to what you're saying, if a guy did the same thing, if Justin Bieber came out that he got in a relationship when he was 16, 17 years old with an older woman, that everybody was all about it. And
I bet he did.
And he came out about it, he
was with Gomez.
they'd just be like, get over it, bro. And that's what frustrates me and is aggravating and is wrong and false and shouldn't happen.
No, that's not what I'm saying, number one.
I'm not saying you're saying that. I'm saying that would be... Bieber would never even do that because it's like, dude, who's gonna get all up in arms about an older woman that you got in a relationship with when you were 17? Even if you write a song about it.
If she was 30, I would still feel a little weird about it. Mental health is also part of her conversation. And so you can't say how much dating an older man when she shouldn't have been possibly hurt her mental health over the years too.
But I don't think that's a case. I think the age is irrelevant. I think if she starts making that case, I think then you're just open the can of worms to say, well, reality check, you probably shouldn't be getting sexually intimate at 18, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, even if it's with a 21 or a 22-year-old. Like the damage of dating a 26-year-old for a 17-year-old isn't going to be any different than dating a 19 or 20-year-old at 17. Tell me how dating a 26-year-old, if you're engaging in sexual intimacy, is going to be different than dating a 20, 22-year-old at age 16, 17, or age 17, 18, 19.
Well, they're older.
Yes, that's it.
They're older, Clifton.
That's it.
They're more developed, have more life experience. And it doesn't become like, oh, this is me and you figuring out life together. It's like, oh, I've been through life and I know what I want. It's a little kid.
Whoa. We're not talking about a little kid here.
17's pretty little.
Well,
when you're 26.
I understood. And that's from the very beginning. I said 17 years old. If he'd waited till 18, she'd have still been dealing with the same regrets. But I don't think anybody could say diddly squat about him.
Yeah.
Because she's 18.
No,
But
I would
developmentally, right, you would
Yeah.
still. And that's what I'm saying is like, there's not much difference in an 18-year-old dating a 22-year-old than there is an 18-year-old dating a 27-year-old, let's say.
There's sure is.
5 years.
That's a lot of growing up.
And that's where the subjectivity comes in.
What about Dane Cook?
Okay.
He's like, what, 54 now or something like that?
Yes.
And his woman, he got her when she was 19. I think she's like 22 now. They've been together a few years. But man, when she was 19, he snatched her up and he was already 50.
Maybe she snatched him up.
Yeah. When you're 19, though, you're not old enough to have the perspective and the life experience to be a shark the way you can at 50. And I would say that if it was a 50-year-old woman and a 19-year-old boy, it's...
What is a 50-year-old woman and a 30-year-old guy?
It's sharkish. I think you should generally try and be with someone around your age, generally.
What's wrong with a 50-year-old who could snag a 30-year-old? If you don't know what you want by 30, you just get an IQ test. If you don't know what you want by 30, get an IQ test.
At that point, when they're both adults, it's up to them.
Yes.
But I do think giant age gaps do start getting a little weird because it's like, why is the older person so immature? Or why is the younger guy or girl seeking out someone so much older? Why would they find that attractive? But what about 50 and 19?
50 and 19?
Yeah. Don't you think it's a little creepy? If she had been 34.
Does he have any kids?
Nope.
Okay. It's not creepy to me at all. Totally understandable.
You think it's just biological?
Yep.
No.
I look at the biology and I think if you are capable of finding a younger mate who can provide children and all this kind of stuff and you haven't had them yet, that is going to be on your mind as a man. You've not secured any progeny. That's just reality.
Yeah, but 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, they can have babies too. Even 40-year-olds can have babies. In my thinking, it's not so much he's like, ooh, I got to get me a fertile womb. It's more like, ooh, I got to get something that I can lust after as long as possible. I think younger is best.
I think it's part of. I think that's part of it. You're not wrong. That's probably. I think it's wrong to assume that more over a man than over a woman.
Yeah, if it was a 50-year-old woman.
Demi Moore with Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
What was their age gap? 20 years almost? Yeah. Something like that? Everybody was like, go you, Demi.
Can you look up for me his age?
Demi Moore and Ashton. Ashton married actress Demi Moore, who was 15 years older than him, after dating for 2 years.
Does it say how old he was when they got together?
Kutcher was 25 when they first met. She was 40. They married when he was 27 and she was 42. And everybody, I remember, was like, go you, Demi, you snatched up Ashton Kutcher. Holy crap. Yeah. Versus, and to me, it's like, if that's the case, that should be exactly how you feel if a man at 42 snags a 27-year-old. You should be like, go you, dude.
First off, 25 and 40 is way better than 19 and 50, like we was talking about. Like,
I agree. It's clearly
the gap has gotten closer together.
Significantly closer.
And Demi
not
was
25 years, it's 15.
It's not like Demi was like old and wrinkled at that point. She was still hottie. I mean, she's 60.
Is Dane Cook not attractive?
Not very much.
I don't know. I don't pay attention to that.
I mean, well, we'll just leave that. He's gotten older also.
And does that matter?
Yeah. It does a
or
little
should
bit.
that matter?
Yeah, it should matter a little.
Like I said, to me, it does seem physiologically and biologically, it does make more sense that an older man would be looking for a younger partner if he's not had any kids. Now, a guy who's went through an entire life, had a divorce, and had his kids and is not interested in more kids, snatching up a 22-year-old, Victoria's Secret model, we're not dumb. We know what's going on. It's not like they met in book club and we're like, oh, we love the same things. Let's hang out. No. We know what's going on. He wants a hot piece of arm candy.
I wonder what the statistics are on people that have huge age gaps and how long they stay married.
I don't know. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of the Not Gospel Podcast. If you're listening, it's Friday. Thank you for tuning in on Spotify or iHeartRadio or iTunes, or Apple Music, I guess. However you're doing this, thank you for supporting. Check out our YouTube channel, Not Gospel Studios, at YouTube. Like, comment, and subscribe. Click the notification bell to be kept up to date with all of our newest videos and content. Keep supporting quality independent content, and as always, keep being awesome, because that's how God made you.